You are listening to Curious Cat, a podcast that examines the shadowy space where science and the supernatural collide, and I'm your host, Jennifer Holtz. Join me every week as I examine what it means to be a soul in a meat suit. Welcome to Curious Cat. Hello, I hope you and your loved ones are well. I'm recording this in May, and right now it's exhausting to be a human, to be honest, especially today. There's this collective sense of us holding our breath, like waiting for the other metaphorical shoe to drop. It's like watching a giant iceberg tip over. It's part way, and we're just stuck in the tension of the in-between. It's a strange sort of torture. What draws me back to a place of peace is to stay away from the ebb and flow of the news, keep in touch with nature, and even creating content for you. Curious Cat came to be born out of a desire to explore the mysteries still unsolved all around us. So asking questions, remaining curious, it snaps me out of fear and brings me into a state of logic or even wonder. And that feels healthier, more optimistic than the alternative, which is, I guess, to hate and destroy. So how about we take a deep breath together before we begin, shall we? I've become somewhat obsessed with Joseph Campbell lately. I found a copy of The Power of Myth in the garage and have been poring over it these last weeks. Each paragraph blows my mind. He speaks of the feminine mythos that was displaced by the masculine mythos, and it got me thinking, this in-between torture we're in the midst of, maybe partly it's because of an imbalance between feminine and masculine energies. But like usual, I've gotten ahead of myself, haven't I? So, first off, feminine and masculine energies have nothing to do with gender. We all have feminine and masculine energies in our bodies. All genders can tap into both energies, though it's common for most of us to have a more dominant energy. But this can shift from day to day, even moment to moment. So what's feminine energy? Well, it's flowing and dynamic. It's not restricted by social norms or perceived boundaries. It can be unpredictable, spontaneous. The guidance here comes from the heart. The core of feminine energy is a creation out of thin air. It's in contrast to masculine energy that really loves that 5-step approach to everything. But we'll talk about that later. The feminine can manifest out of thin air. It embodies the most effective frequency, and it attracts like a magnet. Contrary to traditional narratives, feminine energy is powerful. Feminine strength comes from the soul, an innate, resonant knowing of self. Feminine energy is not afraid to descend into the shadows. In fact, it enjoys meeting the inner power in places where most are unwilling to travel. It's kind of like mining. You're mining in those shadow areas for your undiscovered strengths. Feminine energy can see the possibilities that are invisible to the more structured masculine energy. Feminine energy can create solutions that would have been thought impossible. Creating from feminine energy is to work from intention, and some say are given from the higher self. This is best seen in the works of Nikola Tesla, whom said, and I think the quote is, "Be alone. That is the secret of invention. Be alone. That is when ideas are born." He said that walking alone in nature is where he received his best ideas. Feminine energy needs expression and creation. Without those, it dries out. Feminine energy recognizes when it's time to destroy and let go of the old to make space for something new. Feminine energy recognizes emotions and feelings are valuable. They indicate, something to us that we need to listen to, and they offer lessons and insights. That's why feminine does not suppress emotions. Feminine energy perceives time differently. Think circular motion rather than linear movement. For the true feminine, it's not about how to get from point A to point B. Rather, femme creates a wormhole to travel lighter and faster. Masculine energy is stable and it is perceived as much more predictable. Its strengths are willpower, clarity, focus, and organization. Masculine energy creates structures and rules, and it knows how to apply logic correctly. Masculine energy is knowledge, while femme energy is knowing. It's a subtle difference, but it's important to note. Masculine energy is perfect for shaping fate into destiny. It thinks in a linear mode. Pure masculine energy is protective, smelling danger from far away and ensuring that nothing happens to them or their beloveds. They'll fight for what they love and find ways to achieve goals. Masculine energy is also brutally honest, which is a gift. Pure masculine energy does not care what others think. They stand up for the right things. Masculine energy is direct. It says what they think and it doesn't play games. If others don't like it, they're free to leave. Masculine energy is righteousness. The masculine does right, even if it results in hardship. They will never favor one over another, so they're equitable, fair, and that makes it the perfect energy to shape fate into destiny and follow the life purpose. Those are the positive attributes of feminine and masculine energy. It's worth looking at the downside of both of those energies, though. So when the masculine energy is deficient, you may lack motivation, organization, and accountability. You may come across as irresponsible or have low self-esteem. Focus, boundaries, and assertiveness may be challenging for you when you have lost touch with that masculine energy. When the masculine energy is in excess, you may be dominating or pushing past your limits. You may be too analytical and methodical. You may lose your sense of curiosity and intentionality and work like a robot. The ego may be overactive too. Others may find you hypercritical, assertive, and maybe even confrontational. But when the feminine energy is deficient, you can become emotionally unavailable or creatively blocked. You may have trouble adjusting to change and allowing balance. Rigid ways of being and the lack of self-expression are signs that you may be out of touch with the feminine energy in you. On the other hand, when the feminine energy is in excess, you can be too sheltering towards others. You may feel responsible for the well-being of everyone. You may be too empathetic and even overly forgiving of others and loosening your boundaries too much. You may feel content to the extreme where you don't set new goals. Too much of the feminine essence can manifest as codependency, victimhood, and as a lack of emotional intelligence. Can we all agree that in the present moment, the energies are severely imbalanced? And I believe we're in a much needed phase of recalibrating. To understand how we got here, let's dive into the trenches with my new favorite, Joseph Campbell. If you're not familiar with Joseph Campbell, let me read from the back of his book, The Power of Myth. Joseph Campbell, who died on October 31st, 1987, was the world's foremost authority on mythology, a preeminent scholar, writer, and teacher whose work has had a profound influence on millions. To him, mythology was the song of the universe, the music of the spheres. He researched cultures and myths, noting patterns and moments when archetypes changed, morphing or dying, and being reborn into something else. If you've never heard of Joseph Campbell, or maybe had at one time but never went further, a great place to start is on YouTube. Watch the conversation between he and Bill Moyer about the power of myth. There's too much to unpack in one episode, but I promise it'll make you hungry to learn more. For the purposes of today's conversation, we'll keep it exclusively about feminine and masculine energies. So both feminine and masculine are vital and important. What are the origins of their current imbalance? So Joseph Campbell says we need to look no further than the fall story. The fall from the perfect and divine. It's told in the Bible in the book of Genesis. Up to that time, the mother goddess belief dominated the globe. And the mother goddess was very grounded in the here and now, the earthly. It was very woman-centric. It was very nature-centric. Mother Nature, Mother Earth, that continues the mother goddess beliefs today. The book of Genesis, specifically the Garden of Eden story, cast snakes and women as the reason for the fall from grace. It passes the buck of what will henceforth be called evil to snakes and women, both of which are at the center of power across the world before this story. And the Garden of Eden story flipped all that around, casting those once heroes as villains. In the interview, Moyer comments, in the Christian story, the serpent is the seducer, and Campbell responds, that amounts to a refusal to affirm life. In the biblical tradition we have inherited, life is corrupt and every natural impulse is sinful unless it has been circumcised or baptized. The serpent was the one who brought sin in the world, and the woman was the one who handed the apple to man. This identification of the woman with sin and the serpent with sin, and thus with life, is the twist that has been given to the whole story in the biblical myth and doctrine of the fall. Moyer goes on to ask, does the idea of a woman as sinner appear in other mythologies? To which Campbell responds, no, I don't know of it elsewhere. The closest thing to it would perhaps be Pandora with Pandora's box, but that's not sin, that's just trouble. The idea in the biblical tradition of the fall is that nature as we know it is corrupt. Sex in and of itself is corrupt, and the female as the epitome of sex is the corrupter. Why was the knowledge of good and evil forbidden to Adam and Eve? He asks. Without that knowledge, we'd all be a bunch of babies still in Eden without any participation in life. Woman brings life into the world. Eve is the mother of this temporal world. Formerly, you had a dreamtime paradise in the Garden of Eden. There was no time, no birth, no death, which means no life. In other words, there is a historical rejecter of the mother goddess implied in the story of the Garden of Eden. Moyer says in response, it does seem that this story has done women a great disservice by casting Eve as responsible for the fall. Why are women the ones held responsible for the downfall? Campbell says in response, women represent life. Man doesn't enter life except by woman, and so it is women who bring us into this world of pairs of opposites and suffering. And with that myth, for the first time in recorded history, women and snakes were vilified. So what has Western society's reaction been to this? Well, I think we're living it now. The perception that one is greater than the other, one is more trustworthy than the other, one is stronger, smarter, more efficient, better. I mean, you could go on and on. There's a contingent right now that's in the midst of burning down all things masculine, thinking that will restore balance, rejecting all that is masculine in the name of equity. Hating half of the yin and yang symbol does not make the other half more equal. What it does do is expedite our path to mutual destruction. Both energies are important. They're valuable and they're necessary. To see this best, let's shrink it down to the micro level and look at ourselves, the traits we embody and those we have been conditioned to suppress or deny. If we restore the balance of feminine and masculine within ourselves, we become a living example. Maybe even we will inspire others that might like to do the same. So why do these energies become unbalanced? Let's look at that so that we don't do it again to ourselves personally. Generalizations and stereotypes often swing us from balance to one side of the spectrum. Writer Parita Shah explores the imbalance and ways to remedy this in her article, which I cite in the show notes for you, if you want to read it in full. She says to be connected with your feminine roots is to allow the right opportunities and people to come your way, while having faith that your actions will be rewarded. A balance between the two may look like keeping to-do lists, but being gentle with yourself when you don't check off all the boxes. Perhaps you create a pro and con list for a decision that you have to make, but then you let yourself meditate on the decision and let your intuition weigh in. I thought that was really interesting. And what a great way to take time to honor all of yourselves, even in small decisions. Another way she wants us to think about this is to balance both sides of ourselves by practicing Nadi Shodhana, which is a yogic breathing exercise that helps to balance the Ida and the Pingala nadis, which are meridians that run along your spine. The Ida nadi represents the feminine, while the Pingala nadi represents the masculine. This technique balances the left and right hemispheres of the brain and helps marry logic with intuition. So here's how you practice Nadi Shodhana. Find a comfortable seated position. If you're sitting on a chair, keep your feet flat on the floor. If you're sitting on the floor in lotus position, be sure to sit on a bolster to keep your hips elevated above your knees. Lengthen your spine and let your shoulders drop. Let your eyes shut and begin to draw your attention inward. Let your right hand rest on your knee with the palm facing upward. With your left hand, fold your index and middle finger in toward the inside of your palm. Bring the thumb to close your left nostrils and breathe in through your right nostril for a count of 4. Close both nostrils and hold the breath for a count of 4. Now release the left nostril and exhale for a count of 4. Inhale through the left nostril for a count of 4. Close both nostrils for a count of 4. Then release the right nostril and exhale for a count of 4. Repeat this cycle of breath for about 2 minutes. Her final article takeaways were, you can balance both the feminine and masculine energies within you. You can be confident, yet generous. You can be artistic, yet objective. You can be striving toward your dreams while being grateful for what's already here. Too much or too little of any energy can hold you back from being the great partner, entrepreneur, athlete, spiritual student, or human you want to be. Both energies offer their own set of gifts that are available for you to tap into and embody. For more on how to balance your female and male energies, this comes from writer Melissa Carver's article of the same name. She ponders how gender roles are working their way into the past, but what about gender energy? Typically, we're taught that we are either male or female, with little to no discussion about the fact that everyone has both aspects in their physical and spiritual makeup. Society has separated the two for thousands of years. And many have been taught to either ignore those opposing qualities or to outgrow them. For example, a young girl may be called a tomboy if she enjoys digging in the dirt for worms or playing sports instead of playing with dolls. She's not a tomboy. She's a girl who has an outward expression of her masculine energy. A boy who wanted to play with dolls may also be marginalized. In truth, he's just a boy who expresses his feminine qualities through nurturing. Here are her top 10 tips to keep the scales of masculine and feminine aspects in harmony. Welcoming the masculine. So do something competitive. If it's not generally in your nature, ask a friend to help you out. Some ideas she had may be to play a video game, set an aggressive goal at work, engage in some type of sport, create a cook-off and invite friends to judge, compete in a dance battle. I think I'll seek out a dance battle this weekend. She also, another way to exercise both aspects of yourself, especially the masculine, is construct a project. The mathematical mind is a masculine trait. The goal here is to utilize measurements, angles, and tools. You can create a small birdhouse to a backyard deck. Be consistent in setting time aside each week until the project is complete. You can find inspiration from a local company that sells building supplies. Even arts and crafts stores have some small projects to get into. You can go to Pinterest for inspiration or your local bookstore for a how-to book. There's even local organizations like Habitat for Humanity that are looking for volunteers. Read up on the latest science. The written word, as well as science, comes from the masculine side of your brain. So this is a 2-for-1 activity. Choose a topic of interest and begin with articles or new studies. How about testing your physical strength? Try lifting weights. How about moving furniture to give your space a new look? Or carrying as many grocery bags as you can from your car to the house? Take your yoga practice to the next level with headstands or handstands, maybe against the wall if you're like me and haven't done that in a while. Meditate on your solar plexus. Just remember to be safe if you're exerting yourself physically. Relax when your work is done. Feminine energy is flowing and ever-changing. Female energy tends to go from one project to the next, and always it's in search of something else around them that needs to be done. I am so guilty of that. So while this is great, balance is key. Relaxing is also a human need, and masculine energy has an easier time understanding that sitting on the couch or playing a game has been earned. Anything you consider leisure time can be put into this step. Now let's look at ways to welcome the feminine. Create art. Utilize this energy to try redecorating a room or painting a canvas, signing up for a local art class, doing a project with your kids, buying a coloring book, or even making music. Just have fun. Try something new while releasing any thoughts of what the end result will be. That's not the point. Nurture. This can be anything from plants to pets to people. Do this by encouraging someone around you. Use your personal resources and experiences to guide those who could benefit from that. Be a vessel of positive energy. Nurture yourself and others with fresh food, water, rest. Use touch, hugs, cuddles, massage, high fives, and fist bumps. That's another way to nurture. Give intuition the wheel. Using intuition versus the solely analytical mind is the task here. We've been trained to use our analytical mind when working on a challenge or even just navigating life. So practice following your gut instincts and take a note of where it leads you. Then record what blessings and lessons you gather along the way with this new spontaneous path. The more you build this muscle, the stronger it will become. Welcome emotions. We've been told since childhood that our emotions are messy or noisy or otherwise unwanted, even inconvenient to others. Well, that's trained us to see emotions as a weakness. In fact, they are quite the opposite. Hiding, pushing down, or running from emotions is no way to keep yourself in good balance, not of either masculine or feminine energy. Expressing your emotions improves your personal health, it improves your relationships, and it builds self-awareness. Think holistically. The word holistically means to look at any situation as a whole. In health, this thought process is to treat all aspects of human health in mind, body, and soul versus just the area of discomfort. In photography, it's to look at the entire picture instead of zoning in on just one color or object. So think of ways throughout your day that you can bring in a more holistic approach. If you've ever witnessed a toddler having a knockdown, drag-out tantrum in public, then you're familiar with the parent looking on, not giving in, and keeping their ego out of the situation. They are actually taking a holistic approach, seeing the big picture that if they give in to their child right now, then it's a temporary win, but a long-term loss. The child will have learned that a tantrum results in getting their way, even though it's not necessarily in their best interest. So most of us probably agree that we have been seeing a shift from masculine dominant energy lately, a recalibration in Western culture. I've noticed it in toy stores around town. They're no longer separating feminine and masculine toys into aisles. They're putting building and nurturing toys in the same space. Baby clothes, those aren't homogeneically pink or blue. There are more colors in the spectrum. They're more unisex, which I really love. I've noticed monuments and streets and buildings are being renamed to honor groups of people, or in some instances, women. We're also redefining parenting to value any caregiver that stays home as important to a child's development. We're seeing more balance in wages, though there's still a little bit of work to do there, isn't there? In my life, I've introduced some masculine energy into my everyday by using a masculine brand of deodorant and cologne. I like to dress sometimes in ways that don't focus on the shape of my body. And I've found that particularly freeing. Because of this podcast, also, I read lots of science articles. I can tell you that striking a balance has made me a happier me. In conclusion, it's worth repeating. As we seek balance, it's imperative that we don't burn down, diminish, or suppress the masculine. That will not result in balance. Recollecting the yin and yang symbol, the beauty and structural integrity of balance. With the studies of Joseph Campbell and others, we can make educated guesses as to when and why we reverted from a feminine, dominant world to a masculine one. But ultimately, as we continue to recalibrate, it's imperative we don't malign the masculine, dismiss or diminish it in an effort to rebalance, because that kind of action will mean more imbalance. We don't need that. We need to move into an era where all traits expressed out loud are seen equally. Ultimately, the only control we have over is ourselves. Let's seek feminine masculine balance this week and see if it brings about more joy, more satisfaction, maybe even some inspiration to create or make or do something that brings us some prosperity. Let me know your thoughts or your actions on socials, would you? Thank you for listening to Curious Cat. If you like the content, stories, and information, I'd be grateful if you'd recommend the podcast to one friend or family member to grow the listenership. If you don't already, be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Until next time, stay curious. I love you.
Hey, you. Yes, you. Are you looking for a new podcast that appeals to your scientific curiosity, but is also a little bit spooky?
Show me how I died in a past life.
Well, look no further, because this cat is where it's at.
He had concerns about the ethics surrounding AI, feeling they had achieved consciousness.
Curious Cat Podcast examines the shadowy space where science and the supernatural collide. Listen every week with your host, Jennifer Holtz, as she and her guests explore what it means to be a soul in a meat suit.
We were healing karma together. They were all kind of predestined to resolve something.
Listen on all your favorite streaming apps and continue the conversation on Twitter at CuriousCatPodCA, or find Jennifer and all her links at Jennifer L. Holtz, spelled HOTES.com.